exams, that was like one of the biggest low points in my whole life, right? I thought my whole world was collapsing because especially PwC, who I was training with, it was actually their policy to let go of people who got bad fails. So when I received that text message, that at the time, I mean, it was one of these ugly brick phones that literally just says text message from the ICAW, which was the accounting body that I was doing my exams with. It literally said exam result or final case study exam result, 32% bad fail, all in capital letters. It was horrible. It was horrible. I thought I was going to die. Oh gosh. And luckily my manager at PwC was really good. She sent me a text message a couple of hours later saying, Bianca, you're safe, enjoy your Christmas. Because it was like a week before Christmas. Anyway, I reset the case study, I passed it. And then I didn't really enjoy audit. So I went around looking for another job, and literally every job interview that I had, they asked me the dreaded question, did you get all first time passes in your accounting exams? And of course the answer was no. Not many people do get first time passes. And the answer I got from them was always the same. We don't work with people like that. So basically I got this label that was a failure.
We don't work with failures.
Yeah, exactly. You are a failure. We don't work with people like that. Okay, so I'd heard this many times now, but I still wanted to have another job. I wanted to do something different. And I've been in internal audit with Mellon for a year. I had audited equity research and fixed income research. And I thought, hey, what these guys are doing is really interesting, right? They look at all the options, and I'm an options kind of person. I like to be creative and look at lots of different things. And that's where I light up. So I applied to Morgan Stanley. I got the interview. And what was different with Morgan Stanley was that they didn't ask me that question like that. They asked me, did it take the normal time for you to pass the exams? And I said, yes, it took the normal time for me. It took 3 years. That's how long it takes. And I got the job. Now, I was happy I got the job, but I also felt like a real fraud, because not so much because just of the exam, but also because I was a woman in the man's world. There was almost no other women except for the team assistants who had a different role, right? I was a foreigner, and as soon as I opened my mouth, people would ask me, where are you from? And some people said some really nasty things, right? Like, oh, you're from Germany. What did your grandparents do during the war? And oh, who led you into the country? And even more horrible things like that, right? So I cultivated like this fear of speaking because of that, because I didn't want to feel even more out of place. And also, yeah, because I had not been to elite schools, I hadn't been to elite universities, and I had like this thing where I didn't pass my exams the first time. So I felt like a real outcast, and I thought, okay, well, I guess I just have to work a little bit harder than everybody else, right, to prove my worth. So, and it almost seems embarrassing now to admit this, but I was working really hard, thinking that if I just do a lot, they will recognize me. They will see me as one of them. Right.
Yeah, just go back a little bit, if we may. That feeling of, you talk about your foreign accent, being a woman in a man's world, that imposter syndrome, I guess. But how did that? You brushed over that really quickly. How did that affect you? That's tough. It's tough to deal with that.
Oh, it's really tough. I mean, especially when you feel like an outcast. You feel like you have less of a right to speak.
Yeah.
You have less of a right to be seen, to be heard, and to just be yourself, right? Because all you want to do is you just want to fit in. You want to be accepted as one of them, right? So I started trying to comment on the cricket and on the football. I have no idea about that stuff. And to be honest, I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, but I was kind of almost like denying myself in order to try and fit in. And here's the thing, long story short, it did not work. All it did was I was really exhausted. My managers weren't happy with my output. I was so exhausted. I fell off a bike in a lunchtime spinning class because my boyfriend said, oh, you're just not exercising. You should exercise more. So I listened to his advice. I went on the bike and I fell off. And in the same week, I got told by my manager's manager that I was underperforming and I needed to be more visible. And to somebody who already feels like an outcast, having to be more visible, that's like, it seems like a death sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm already so much more different than everybody else. You want me to be even more different. So it was really, really scary.
Part of your solution there was back then was early on was to try and behave and be like one of the boys.
Up until then, I tried to be like one of the boys.
Yeah.
And then I had this all important meeting with another manager. And I said, okay, I told her, I want to do well in this job. And I think I can do well in this job. You tell me what I'm missing, please. And this was amazing. She just told me exactly what it was that I was missing. She told me, look, you think you're doing a really great job, but others don't see it. It's your responsibility to show them. And then she said a few other things like, oh, you always have to be in the office. You always have to be available, rah. And I thought, yeah, that's not realistic. But what really resonated with me about that is that it's your responsibility to show them. And I was like, okay, right. Others don't see it. So I did get help from a coach. I did some work with an acupuncturist, some energy work, etc. Right. So I didn't, I said, I can't do this myself. I asked for external help, did mindset work, etc. And what I ended up doing was I went around. So my internal clients were salespeople. I went around them and I said, okay, I cover these small, shitty stocks. What you need to see from me so I can actually be successful in this environment. And they told me, oh, don't speak to me with 10 or 20% upside. I need 50% upside. Otherwise, don't waste my time. So I had a look around and I found some stocks where I can see 50% upside. So basically what happened was I asked people, what do you need to see from me to say that I'm a high performer? And people told me what they needed to see from me. And then I said, okay, it's either shit or bust, right? And I said, I'm going to do it. I went out with 50% upside, 33% upside for some stocks. And I just decided to be super visible. There was an opportunity to do videos. I said, I'll do videos, right? And then it was just a function of, oh, but your stocks are really small. Why should we bother? And I said, well, they're not going to stay small forever. Trust me on that one. So I basically started believing more in myself because frankly, there wasn't really much of a difference other than I looked and sounded differently. But I looked at everybody else around me and what they were doing. I said, there's no reason why I can't do that either, or why I can't do that too. So thanks to the mindset work that I did, that helped me to believe in myself again and to reframe the failure into a success, right? Because hey, I failed the first time, but I'm actually the type of person who tries it again and succeeds. Based on that and just reframing everything that had happened in my life and turning it from failures to successes in my own head, that's what basically helped me, be proud that I'm an outsider. Because hey, fitting in is not something that you should do if you want to be successful in business. Yeah. You have to show other people what's different about you. And in a way, it's actually a lot easier as a woman because by default, you stand out, right? I went to conferences and yes, I got asked by people where the toilets are because people thought I was part of the team that organized the conference because I was a woman. But there were also people who said, oh, are you the girl at Morgan Stanley? Like, yeah, that's me, right? And it's a massive advantage to be the only woman in the room because they know by default that it's a lot harder for you to even get into the room. And the fact that you are in the room means that there's something very special about you. And once you start embodying that, everybody else will see that too. So once I started embodying that, nobody ever asked me where the toilets or where the place where the coffee is or anything like that.
So be proud of your difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Be proud of your difference and stand out. Brilliant. Brilliant. How long was that journey from the bottom at Morgan Stanley to getting to that feeling of I'm achieving something and succeeding and it's working?
Yeah, so once the penny dropped, that was about 3 or 4 years in. Once the penny dropped and they told me you're in the bottom quartile, so they rank everybody on all these different metrics, and they said, oh, most of the metrics you're in the bottom quartile. Once the penny dropped, I went from the bottom to the top quartile within 2 quarters, and I got promoted the same year.
Yeah,
it can happen really, really quickly.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. What happened next?
So what happened next was that I just kept doing what I was doing. I kept being different from everybody else. So there was the opportunity to do video. I went and did video, and it was by no means, I mean, if you saw it today, you'd be shocked, like, oh, Morgan Stanley put something out like that. And oh, actually, one client from a really big account, there was one video that I did on Unite student accommodation, and I didn't have all the kit. So I kind of propped the camera up on some books when I did a roundtable interviewing all the different students about what they thought about living in a Unite student asset. And one client called in later. I mean, the content of the video was brilliant. It was perfect. Very insightful. But the client called and he said, Bianca, I cannot believe the quality is so rubbish. I cannot believe that somebody like Morgan Stanley puts out rubbish like this. He said a different word for rubbish, not to be repeated. But I asked him, yes, I totally see that. I will feed that back. But how about the content of the video? Did you find it insightful? And he said, oh yeah, totally, super insightful. So it's basically you listen to the feedback, right? And then you turn it around into, okay, and what did you actually like about it? So he felt heard, right, about the feedback, but then I also helped him see value in the product that I produced for him. And these videos, I think they were instrumental to helping me, climb up to get people to see who I was and to get to know me. Sometimes I had people recognize me in the street. And this is a funny one. Even after I left Morgan Stanley, I went to a Saturday singing class for my children. And there was a dad in the singing group. He's staring at me as if he's recognizing me from somewhere for weeks on end. And I was like, I don't know that guy. I can't think of anywhere that I know that guy from. And then he's like, are you the Bianca from Morgan Stanley, the one with the videos? So it helps in so many different ways to be visible and to be seen, right? Even though, I mean, the videos really weren't perfect. They looked very homemade, but I was the only person who was making these videos. Nobody else in my sector was making these videos, and people knew me and felt like they could trust me, who I'd never spoken to before. So then in the surveys that they do internationally to ask investors who are the best analysts that give you the most insightful research and ideas, I got ranked really, really highly, even though I never traveled to many different countries, and I didn't really get that many meetings. I didn't even have a huge call list, of investors that we actively call. People would call me to ask some more questions about the video that they saw. So to put it in a nutshell, being visible and doing things that are different and being the first person who does something is really scary. It's really scary, but it can also give you massive traction, especially if you're operating in a space that doesn't seem very important, that nobody really cares much about. Because these German property stocks, initially people told me to F off, literally. People taught me to F off with my effing small German stocks that nobody effing cares about. These stocks, over the time period that I covered them, they went ×5. They didn't just quadruple, they went ×5. I don't even know the English word for that. Sorry, Mark, can you enlighten me on that?
No, I can't. I'm not an equity analyst and I'm not very good at maths. but they went up by 5 is good. Bianca, just so in that time then, did how your colleagues and your peers treated you? You went from thinking you needed to learn about cricket, and nobody apart from us English and our Commonwealth friends know about cricket. Did people start, how did they change? How was their relationships change? Were people starting to be more interested in you as a person and as your life?
I think so, Mark. So people were above and for all interested in my expertise.
Yeah.
Really interested in my expertise. And also what changed for me and the way I was showing up is that I was a lot more interested in other people. So I would never start with the pitch straight out of the door. Whenever somebody called me, I would ask them, what's your investment philosophy? I asked them questions about them.
Yep.
That were relevant to how I could help them, right? So I'd ask them questions like, how do you invest? What are your restrictions, right? To even know out of the gate whether these stocks are even something that they could invest in.
Yep.
And by asking them questions, what's stopping you from buying these shares, right? Openly asking them, what are your objections to my idea? By, being open to feedback or observations or criticism or whatever you call that. That was actually a massive gift to me, to be able to ask other people, okay, what do you not like about this idea? What's holding you back from investing in these shares? And then listen to them and write it all down. I always have my book next to me, write it all down, what their fears are, what their concerns are, what their conflicts are, etc. And then you say, thank you very much. This is so useful, right? And then I write a note. I write another research report responding directly to those concerns, right? I go out and get more data, respond directly to what their fears are. And you can totally do this, whichever position you're in, right? You can totally do this. And this is one of the pitfalls that I did in other parts of my career, right? Is to not ask. It's to not ask. And that can be anything. It can be more resources in your team. It can be something that you'd really love to do, like say, I'm thinking about this new project, and what would you like about it? What are your concerns about it? What would you be different? What would you do different? So it's to not ask, because asking is very scary, because it makes us vulnerable, right? Because whenever you ask a question, people can say no to you, and it's this fear of rejection that stops us from doing what we really want to do. Because hey, what if somebody says no? That feeling is horrible, right? That's like being told, we don't work with people like you.
The fear of no. The fear of no.
Yeah. So this reluctance to ask. And one thing where I'm kicking myself today, because now I know that I made that mistake, is that I never asked for the next promotion. I just thought I'm going to get it because I assumed that I was ticking all the boxes, right? Because I asked them, oh, what are my KPIs? But that was the wrong question. What I should have asked is, when's the meeting where they're going to decide on who gets promoted? Who's going to be at that meeting? And what are they going to talk about? Because especially number 3, what are they going to talk about? As I found out later, they don't talk about the KPIs in that meeting. They don't even look at the KPIs in that meeting. Right? So, and this happens to my clients all the time, where they expect a promotion, they think that they have all the KPIs ticked off, and then they don't get it. And then a month or so after, this resentment that they have is wearing down, they go and ask, somebody, Bolini, is that how I pronounce your name? She says, so true, Bianca. Yes. So thank you, Bolini. Afterwards, you go, why did I not get promoted, right? And sometimes they get told, oh, we didn't even know you wanted to get promoted. You never told us.
Yeah.
Or they say, oh, you weren't even considered in the round table, right? We didn't even talk about you.
So Bianca, you're talking here about, there's 2 of your 3 pitfalls you're talking about. One is not asking.
Mm-hmm.
And the second there is then not networking, not preparing, not judging properly.
Yes, exactly. So if we just stay with the first one, right? Not asking for the promotion. So you really want to make it very clear that that's what you want, right? If that's what you want, or maybe you want more resources in your team. Maybe you want a different role, right? Maybe the role that you're currently in isn't really playing to your strengths. and you can't really be yourself the way, or you can't really be as powerful as you want to be in your career, because the role isn't really for you, right? So it's about bring up the courage to actually go and say, this is what I want, right? And by the way, these pitfalls, they're not our fault. They are not our fault. It's just that we don't know. Nobody's ever told me, or at least for me, nobody ever told me that the things that they talk about in that roundtable are totally not aligned with my KPIs. But here's the thing, I never asked the question. And I know now from teaching, from coaching leaders at very high levels who have like hundreds of people reporting into them, that they don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to go and speak to every single person of the 100 and ask them, oh, hey, by the way, do you want to get promoted? Right? They just assume that the 20 or 30 out of the 100 that don't say, I want to be promoted, they just assume that they don't want to get promoted. So once you know that that's the case, right, are you going to be more likely to say, I want to get promoted, I want to grow, I want to progress in this company?
I think that's so important, isn't it? When you're, particularly as a manager, sometimes I've felt I've had to really pull out of the team what they want, and you know, it would be much easier if they were able to come and say, this is what I want this, 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 and this. I know I might not get it all, but this is the direction I'm heading in. It just makes life so much easier if you can have those honest, open conversations, and if you can ask.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's very difficult to actually, first of all, know what you want, and secondly, express what you want. Society has conditioned us that way, right? Especially with women, when we do career coaching or more life coaching, the first thing I ask them is, what do you want? And yeah, for most of us, the chin drops to the floor. It's like, nobody's ever asked me that before. I've never even thought about it, because we grow up thinking, oh, who wants never gets, right? Especially for women, women and desire, that's evil.
Yeah. Kiki's just posted in the chat there. It's mostly assumed that men want to be promoted and not women. Have you've why is that? Why do you think that's assumed? And Kiki, maybe you can come on and share your experience. I can't see you. No. Bianca, have you seen that?
I think, oh, there's another comment here. A female boss suggested promotion to me. I didn't ask, but my junior, who is male, asked me whether he would get promoted. So, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Zanatol.
Zanatol, yes. So Zanatol is confirming what Kiki said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can tell you very quickly where I learned that this is actually where I learned something really big about myself and women and men. That was 25 years ago when I trained as a youth coach. I was about 16 years old, and I had been told all my life that I was very cheeky, I was very loud, and that I would never get a husband because of how unfeminine and how masculine I was, right? So in this exercise that we did on this retreat on how to be a youth coach, if you imagine the room like this, and there was like a net in the middle, and we were two teams on either side of the room, and we had to argue about something. We had to get really angry, right? I thought I'd probably get the same feedback that I always get, that I'm very aggressive, I'm very assertive, and I better shut up. What happened in this meeting, I had a huge aha, is that they told us afterwards, and the other girl, by the way, she was also, had always been told that she was very aggressive and assertive and too much for a woman. What happened is the guys, they were all here in the middle around the net. They even sometimes went over and above the head, and they got really aggressive body language as if they were going to go and beat each other up. The girls, who apparently had been told all their life how aggressive and assertive they were we were actually both on either side of the room, really at the back. And the trainer told us that this is typical female behavior. And the words that we had used, the words that the girls had used, first of all, we had a lot less air time than the guys. The guys had talked a lot more than the girls on each team. And we'd used less aggressive language. And we were at the back of the room. 2 aggressive women. Can you see how society had told us that we were too much, rah. But already at 16 years, I was at the back of the room. Yeah. I wasn't half as assertive as all the guys. I didn't half as much express what I thought was the case, and not with as powerful language. So can you see, just looking at this example, how this sense comes across that women don't really want the thing as much as men. And that can be promotion, that can be being close to the net, that can be putting yourself forward, asking for stuff. In any situation that you want in life, that you can think of in life, right? This is how, this is gender specific behavior. And then it's not our fault, right? That's how we grow up. And then this is how it gets reinforced, and this is how it shows up in your work life.
Irina, you've got your hand up.
Yes, sorry, I've just got to put my camera on for a second, just to be social. Hello,
everybody. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I have a quick question, Riemer. I'm actually, well, let's put it this way, I'm not of the shy kind, so I know what you mean about the aggressive, so that's, I wanted just to jump back to what you said about asking for the promotion. What I found, and this is a practical, perhaps too practical of a question, what I find is that even if you find who makes the decision, it's usually several layers above you, your manager, right? And what I've noted, and obviously flipping it on the side from the manager's perspective, if you are half a decent worker, the last thing they want is for you to go, right? So arguably, for you to get to even be talked to the table for the promotion, you need to go above their head and tell other people. So how do you, I think what I'm asking is, how do you balance that, not I can't pronounce that word today, because English is not my first language either. Basically upsetting your manager, but still making sure you get to that higher level. What would be your tips? Because, I've always asked, let's put it this way, but how do you, I always stayed within the level of my management, right? I never went above their heads. Right. But I feel like that's almost feels like the only way forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you, Irina. So basically what he's saying is that you're so good at your job that if you go and get a different role in your company, there's going to be a gap where you currently are. Right. So how do you manage that? So if possible, you want to make sure that that gap gets closed somehow. So can you train up somebody junior? Can you train up your colleagues, right? But that's only half of the equation, because at the end of the day, do they need you enough for the other role that you're going for, that they can deal with the gap that you're leaving behind, right? That's even more important. And what you want to make sure to have them think that it's more important to have you in this new role than having a gap for your old role is that they know, like, and trust you. That's the second pitfall I was going to mention today, and that is not networking. Because in that big promotions roundtable that they have, where the bigwigs are sitting and talking about you, right? One of the most important things is, do they even know who Irina is? Do they even know who you are? Right? Because they may have a piece of paper with all the KPIs, but do they even look at that piece of paper? Do you even have, do the people who are in that roundtable room talking about positions or promotions, etc., do they know who Irina is, what she stands for, what she's capable of, what her ambitions are? Have they spoken to you? Do they feel like they can trust you, right? And trust is based on actually knowing and liking somebody. So those are the first two steps. So with networking, what the research is showing, and also what I think helped me personally back, is that women tend to do a lot of networking outside their company, networking with clients, etc., but not really as much networking as the men, inside the company, up the ranks. So there seems to be this subconscious expectation amongst women that, hey, somebody just needs to finally discover me and then I'll get promoted. But in the meanwhile, all the guys are networking their way up, right? They're reaching out to the important people, the people they know are going to be in that round table, and they say, hey, let's have coffee. Or, hey, I saw on the internet that you're looking for a Spanish teacher for your son. I know a really good Spanish guy. I think they would get on brilliantly. Do you want me to make the connection, right? They stalk these important people on social media and see how they can help them. And there's no reason, there's nothing that stops you from doing that networking. It really, right? There's probably only, well, for me, there was one person who stopped me from doing more networking. Do you want to know who it was?
It was you, I guess.
Yes. I was standing in my own way. I thought, hey, I'm ticking off all the KPIs. Job done. I went home, spent time with my family, and there's nothing wrong with feeling successful, feeling worthy, and going home when your job is done, right? But everybody else is networking. Everybody else is spending the 5 minutes per day to send a quick email, to send a quick, say there's a Zoom room like this. There's people who are networking with private messages with other people in the Zoom group, right? Saying, hey, I saw this picture on Facebook of you in this and this scenery. Where was that? That looked amazing. Where was that, right? So there's so many opportunities where you can network, where rather than just sitting and taking in information, you can actually actively participate and show yourself what you're all about, create relationships. So there's nothing that stops you from private messaging somebody, right? During a Zoom meeting like this, for example, or there's nothing that stops you from commenting in the post, commenting in the chat room on something that resonates with you or something that you disagree with. And by doing that, other people are going to find out more about, that's what Irina cares about. They're going to potentially relate with something that Irina is talking about in the chat box, right? And that's how relationships are built. So if you are in a big forum with somebody who's really important, somebody who you know is going to be in that room, how are you going to reach out to that person and make them know and like you, right? Those are the first two things that you need to do to start networking. You don't start out with an ask like, hey, I know you're important, be my mentor. Because people like that, they get 10 emails every day asking to be their mentor, right? But how can you stand out amongst all the other women that are asking him or her to be her mentor, to be your mentor? How can you stand out? By helping them first before asking something. So you can stalk them on social media, you can see what they're sharing on LinkedIn, you can reshare their posts, you can leave really thoughtful comments. Say they're raising money for charity because somebody in their family has got an illness or something. You can leave a really thoughtful comment with your name when you make a donation. You donate like £5 or £10, and then you say, hey, I really appreciate that you're raising money for breast cancer awareness because my mother died of breast cancer. I think it's so important that we're aware of this, right? So I really appreciate that. Leave a thoughtful comment that creates a connection between you two. And that's how you start that networking process, because at the end of the day, people are people. No matter how important somebody is, they still go to the toilet a few times per day and they still poop.
Bianca, I'm going to set everybody a challenge on the call here now before I bring Sarah in. Private message somebody. Look at somebody who's on the call here today, and just send them in the chat a private message and say, "Hi, let's connect," and see what comes of it. Sarah, you've got your hand up. You've had recent experience of this promotion business as well. You were saying earlier on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to expand a bit on Bianca's point, because one thing that took me far too long to learn, and I learned it myself, and if someone just told me, I probably would have progressed much quicker, is you need to really understand the shadow culture in your organization. So every organization claims it has a culture and a reward culture and a promotion culture, but there really is a shadow culture as well, like shadow politics. And if you don't understand that, then it's going to take you a lot longer to get to where, you know, you're capable of getting. And certainly from, you know, in my experience, but across various organizations, to Bianca's point around, you know, to expand on Bianca's point around promotion, you need two things. One, you need to know that you are number one for your manager going into the process, because certainly at senior levels, it ends up being basically horse trading. Like, I'll get your number one person across the line if you get my number one person across the line. So you need to kind of position yourself to be your manager's number one priority to get over it, and you need them to confirm it to you, because you need to ask and say. And then secondly, to the point around the panel needs to know you, I've spent too long of my career thinking having a mentor was key, but actually I needed a sponsor. And I say again, certainly at the senior levels, until you have a sponsor, you're not going to have somebody at the table banging the table for you. And the sponsor won't be your manager. It will be a level, unless they're super senior and on the senior decision making, but it will be one or two people above them, and they need to be banging that table, and they need to be saying, this is the person. And that's just a relationship that you need to cultivate.
So was that sponsor that you got, was that a formal sponsorship program, or was that something that you created yourself through networking?
No, it was just created. I learned to ask. Yeah. Finally, I learned to ask. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah, and congratulations to your promotion. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so David asked in the chat, what advice would you give to a man when addressing promotion with a female member of a team? So that's a really good question, David. And here's the thing. What you want to focus on first and foremost is establish real trust. Because asking somebody what they want, that makes them very vulnerable, right? They don't want to be told no. So for this person, it's really important to feel that they are in a position to tell you what they want. And sometimes you have to keep asking the same question. So I coach even with male leaders, I sometimes spent a whole hour drilling down on what it is that they want. They tell me, oh, I want recognition. I'm like, what does recognition look like for you? How will you know that you've got that recognition, right? There was a real hesitance to even mention grade and pay rise. Even with a male leader, there's like this, almost like this feeling of shame or guilt or this discomfort around actually addressing rank and money, right? It's like, and we get indoctrinated with that it's shameful to talk about wants and money, right? And that was only one aspect. And then there's the other aspect, you know, what else does recognition mean for you? And that was also really difficult. Like, how do you know that you've got the recognition that you needed, right? Oh yeah, other people talk good things about me. Yeah, but how do you know that? How can you actually validate that? It's really, really difficult. So I would take them out and, you know, start the conversation with, hey, let's get to know each other a bit more. I want to make sure that you're happy in the team, that you fulfilled, that you get from this career what you want from it. And maybe promotion is not what this person wants, right? And then obviously, I guess you don't want to put pressure on it. So I would just keep it really open and say, hey, what does success look like for you, right? Because we all have different criteria for success. For some people, success looks very different. And for others, it's not necessarily always money and rank. Sometimes it's more balance. Sometimes it's more recognition. Some people like gifts. Some people like quality time, right? Some people like to hear the words. So it's a matter of really understanding how your person sees the world, what makes them tick, what motivates them, and what gives them the evidence that they've got what they wanted. Does that answer your question, David?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, furiously making notes. You can see the smoke rising from my pen.
Ah, that's great. Thank you. So, hey, I realized that we don't have much time left, but I would love to talk about the third pitfall. Is that okay?
Go for it. Go for it, Bianca.
Okay, so the third pitfall is something that I'm really, really passionate about. And that is that as women, and also men, but since we're mostly women here, we're scared of shining our light, right? And here's the thing with shining our light. If we don't shine our light, people can't see us in the dark. So what do I mean by shining our light? Is that we don't really believe as much in ourselves as we can do. And I want to give you a really potent example. I was coaching this leader. She was a female leader. She wanted to become a global head, moved to London from a small Eastern European country. And she was applying for roles. And they kept telling her, you're suitable for the job, but there's just one little pullback, and that is that you don't have any contacts in Brazil, India, and China, which were the markets where this company was growing, right? A massive global organization. And she decided, okay, I'm going to start growing my network in these markets. It will probably take me a couple of years. Now, when we did the subconscious work together in the hypnotherapy, we asked the subconscious mind, okay, so what is it that's holding this person back, right? And she went back to scenes. So in her conscious mind, she thought, oh, it's because maybe I've got imposter syndrome. I don't really think I've got imposter syndrome, but maybe there's something there that I don't know. So we did the hypnotherapy, and it may sound a bit scary, but it's just like a meditation where you're a little bit more relaxed, and we do a coaching session like that. And she went back to the past, and the subconscious mind will choose the scene that you go back to. She went back to scenes where she got the good marks at school, and she asked the teacher to not tell the other people because she didn't want to stand out and be different from the others. She went back to a scene where she was a teenager, and she was a lot taller than all the other girls, the other girlfriends that she had, and she stopped wearing heels so that she could fit in. Can you see where this is going? So the meaning that she made out of these scenes was that, oh my gosh, I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to be like everybody else rather than just being myself. Because she was very powerful. She was a true born leader naturally, right? But she was holding herself back in showing up as powerfully as she really was because she wanted to fit in and not be different. Her subconscious mind, by the way, her conscious mind was like, I'm a leader, I want that position. So, but we all have different parts to ourselves. And the subconscious part was holding her back. It's as if you're trying to drive a car and you're pressing the gas pedal and the brake at the same time. You're not going anywhere. So basically what she told her subconscious mind was, listen, I know you're just trying to protect me and keep me safe, but I don't need that at the moment. What I need you to do is to advocate for me and to allow me to shine my light brightly. What happened was she started showing up a lot more powerfully than she already was. And within a couple of months, she had a global head position, and she's in London now. That's how quickly you get the change, is by doing the inner work, by actually allowing yourself to get to know yourself fully and to trust yourself. And there seems to be this notion that, hey, being a leader means being selfish, right? So a lot of women I work with are finding it really hard to see themselves as a leader and to see themselves as like kind of a lighthouse, because as they grew up, there was probably some point in the past where they got told that they were selfish, right? When they asked for something, when they were striving for something, and that's stuck with them. So that's why a lot of women I know, even very senior women who earn 7-figure salaries, or total comp, sorry, including bonus, 7 figures, are finding it hard to actually say, hey, I want more than that, or to negotiate on their own behalf, is because at some point in the past, they got told that they're selfish for something, right? And they don't want to be a selfish bitch. So that's why I hear all the time, yeah, I know I should be getting more, I should be asking for more, but I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be seen as a bitch. And here's the thing, it's totally not selfish to ask for more, because you're blazing the trail for other women. By you stepping out of your comfort zone, you're blazing the trail for other women, you're making it easier for them. So it's totally not selfish at all, but you're stepping outside your comfort zone. You're actually doing it for other women. And if it helps, that's one way of thinking about it, right? I'm asking for this raise, not just for me, but also for everybody else who comes after me. I'm asking for this board position, or I'm going for this board position, not just for me, but also for all the other women who are going to see me on the board and who are going to see that it's possible, right? There's this other person like me with this weird accent who's on a board. That means it's more possible for me. So that's how you are actually helping other women as well. Right. But I do have some more actionable advice for you now, because the inner work, that's something that that takes a little bit more time. But there's one tip that I really like that I also made work in my own career. So I got this from an MD, a Morgan Stanley, an American MD. She held a roundtable. She told us this trick, and it totally works. And that is that when you get positive feedback from a client, from an internal colleague, from a collaborator, from a stakeholder, etc., and you know them well enough to ask them, hey, this is amazing feedback. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time for giving me this information, this feedback. And, I would be thrilled if you could send this also to my boss or to my sponsor, to my mentor, to this person, right, that you have established is going to be in that promotion roundtable. You ask that favor. And what that does is that you're not just bragging about yourself all the time. Some people don't actually do that at all because they feel it's too braggy. But what I would have done is I always forwarded all the emails to my boss, to my boss's boss, etc. Because at Morgan Stanley, everybody does that. If you feel uncomfortable with that, or as an addition to doing that, if you're already doing that, is you can ask the person, hey, I would really appreciate if you could send this directly to my boss's boss. I think he would really appreciate you telling him this really great information on how we serve this client, for example, right? So you don't necessarily have to make it about you. You can make this about how the company, served this client extremely powerfully, right? So that then your boss's boss has got more information to speak to that client as well, and everybody's happy. And I have a self-promotion template that you can use to send your own emails to your boss, to your boss's boss, that show your performance, but without bragging. So, and Mark told me that it's okay for me to put that link in the chat box. So if you're curious about it, you can download that template here at this link that I've put in the chat box. And that's basically a really easy way to promote yourself without bragging, without making it all about you, because the template will basically take you through a process that takes about half an hour, where you can work out how something that you've done has benefited your boss, the company, your clients, and then the wording, it will give you the wording to present that information in a way that your boss will really be looking forward to you sending these emails.
Bianca, thank you for sharing that template, and we'll try and get it up on the WhatsApp group and also the LinkedIn group as well. Katie, is that can we do that? That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So can I sum up? You've got your three pitfalls, Bianca: not asking, not networking, and not seeing yourself in a good light.
Yeah, not shining your bright, which is based on not seeing yourself in a good light, right? And like I said, it's not our fault. We grew up like that. We got told too many times, oh, like my brother got paid for working in my parents' company, and I didn't. And I asked my parents, why is he getting paid and not me? He was 2 years younger than me, right? So less capable. And the answer I got was because he's a boy.
Yeah.
And we all have things like that happen to us in our early childhood, right? The first 7 years of our life are fundamental for how we see ourselves and the world, right? We may not consciously remember these instances, but it's them that's running our way of seeing ourselves and seeing the world today. And therefore, it's super important to know how we got these limiting beliefs that we're setting ourselves, that it's harder for women, or that that is not allowed, or that is not that we have to ask for permission or wait for permission before we can say, yes, I do actually want to get promoted. Once we know what's holding ourselves back, we can cancel that out and just go for it.